Hey, I'm Felipe Pacheco. This is the Hybrid Cloud Partners podcast, and I'm joined by my friend and teammate, always joined by him, Adam Burke. How you doing, Adam?
Hey, I'm doing great. Excited to talk about one of my favorite topics here today.
Well, I'm double excited here because not only are you joining me, but also we have another member of the data center optimization team who's joining the podcast for the first time. I really don't understand what took you so long to join us. We have Fernando Peoples here with us. How are you doing, Fernando?
I'm doing great. Excited to join. Been a fan of the podcast, so ready to jump right in.
I know you're not kidding. Like, people, when I tell you he's a fan, he always, the day after the podcast, tells me something that really proves that he listened to the episode. He's probably one of the top 5 people that listen. And we have some listeners from Asia even. So I think he wakes up in the middle of the night when we publish the episode and listens to it.
No, I just actually scroll 10 minutes into the podcast, listen to like 30 seconds of it, and then that's when I reach back out to you.
Oh man, yeah. Don't teach your kids that. But Fernando, not only are you an avid listener, but Fernando also has 20 plus years of experience in this tech ecosystem. He worked for multiple Microsoft partners for a while in technology companies. And ever since 2021, you joined Microsoft. Adam was probably here when our founders were still at the company. So Adam, you don't have that little celebration to.
I was.
Oh, you were?
I've shared an elevator with Bill Gates.
Oh, really?
That was my 15 seconds of access to fame.
Okay,
Yep.
Can we get like 15 seconds of him in the podcast, or did it not?
Maybe next episode. We'll ask.
That actually gave me an idea for what we have today. We have a special game edition of our podcast today because over the past weeks, we've covered so many partner stories, and many of them have touched upon an exciting technology, which is Azure Arc. But that has only come with a million of questions. So we thought, what is the best way to cover many of the top asked questions? Well, let's do an episode on that and bring 2 very smart people here, and I'll play host. So I was actually asking Copilot what it could be the best name for this episode. It came up with some really good puns. I'll let you guys tell me which one is your favorite. I have 5. It gave me like 20, but I'll just give you 5. So it said, how about Arcs Me Anything? Kind of like a pun on Ask Me Anything. Along the same lines, what about Frequently Asked Questions? Arc You Curious? Arc Reactor, powering your questions. And maybe the most serious one is Architecting the Future. A lot of Arc puns here.
Yeah. I like architecting the future.
Yeah.
And asks me questions.
Well, I asked you a lot of questions today for both of you. We're going to do 4 sections to keep this fun. It's not going to be an interview by any means. We want to keep it a little on the lighter mood, right? We're recording actually this on a Friday, so we want to keep it light. So first, I'm going to ask you to pitch based on your idea, Adam, of your 15 seconds of fame with Bill Gates. I'm going to give you twice as much. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to pitch what Arc is if you run into a partner that's on SPLA. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about it as we go to the other sections, but both of you are going to make that pitch like totally improvised. I'm going to put my phone on timer, so I won't give you a millisecond more than 30 seconds. Okay, that's going to be section 1. Section 2 will be a round of true or false. The name pretty much says what it is. Then we're going to do business and technical lens. Fernando, you'll be technical, and then Adam, you'll add the business lens to any question that I ask. And then the last part is going to be actually something that we get a lot of questions on, which is going to be called, do I have to pay for X? So we're going to cover a lot of things that people always ask. Is it I have to pay for that? Is that included in Arc? So we're going to get to that. So don't skip to that section yet. We have a lot of fun coming up with the first section, which is the Arc pitch, okay? Who wants to go first while I put my timer on my phone? We have very advanced technology here, a phone timer.
Fernando, you're the guest. You pick. You want to go first or second?
You go first this round.
Heads or tails?
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. We don't have all of our listeners. Not all of them are watching. So, okay, Fernando, you want to go first?
No, that's what.
Oh, you deferred. Okay, perfect. Okay, Adam,
alphabetical order.
I'll start. Perfect. Yeah. I'll get you started in 3, 2, 1.
So Arc is essentially a platform to extend capabilities of Azure into your data center. I think one of the huge advantages of Arc versus SPLA is just a licensing vehicle. You're essentially buying licensing SKUs Arc is a platform that integrates cloud technologies into your data center, helps you bring the best of data center capabilities into Azure. One of those things is cloud economics with Arc-enabled SQL and pay-as-you-go
Time's
billing.
up. Sorry. But I think
Good pitch. Good pitch.
let's see if a partner is listening and they want to call your phone number or not. Okay. Or they can call our guest, Fernando, with 20 plus years of experience with partners, because he might have a better pitch. Okay, Fernando? So again, you're running into an elevator with a partner. You want to explain what ARC is before they get to floor 7. What would you say in 3, 2, 1?
Arc is a way to extend capabilities from your data center. But the beauty of it is, just like Adam said, SPLA is licensing. Arc is licensing and services. It's the best world of Azure. And basically, if you have any clients who are not considering going to public cloud, here's an option to be able to start slowly but surely extending services to them, and they can still be on-prem. And then when that conversation comes, they can go to public cloud.
Awesome. Right on time. I gave you actually 8 milliseconds more than you were supposed to get, but no, you were awesome, Fernando.
It took that long to hit the button.
Yeah, that's just my reaction time on the 40-yard dash if you're going to keep this sports metaphor. But no, great job, both of you. And of course, for our listeners, we've done so many episodes on ARC that we didn't want to spend, so long explaining what it is. We just wanted to level set and keep it fun. But I'll link to a couple of episodes here in our resources. And if you're watching on YouTube, on the upper right corner, you can get our ARC 101 episode. But now that we're level set, let's get into section number 2, which is actually a lot of fun. It's true or false. The only thing, either of you can jump at any point. I'm going to give you actually just 5 statements. This is our not questions. I'm just going to make a statement, and you're going to tell me if that statement is true or false. Hopefully you guys are in agreement, but you can both intervene. The only rule is whatever you're going to say after my statement has to start with the word true or the word false. We got to be very binary here. Is that okay?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like when we get it more budget, we're gonna have like all these like animations, and it's gonna be maybe streaming somewhere, but we'll settle for YouTube for now, and the excitement that we're bringing. Okay. So are you guys ready for the first one?
Go.
Okay. Number 1 is Microsoft just wants every customer to migrate and modernize right away.
I would say false, especially when you say right away. I mean, Arc shows you that statement is false because it allows customers to be able to do some sort of modernization while they're still on-prem by connecting to via Arc. And then we also understand that everybody doesn't lift and shift everything at one fell swoop and just go. There's stages of deployment. They take time. So with that, Arc enables you to take your time and migrate slowly but surely, and also learning about and in deploying Azure services while you're still in Arc.
Yeah, I would agree with false. I would say we want everybody to modernize in the sense that we believe our modern technologies and capabilities, far surpass what we were able to offer 3, 5, 10 years ago. And so I think the modernization piece is true. In terms of the migrate, though, I would say that's why I would say the question is false in its entirety, is because we believe in the adaptive cloud. And so from our perspective, we can provide value to customers regardless of whether they're running inside of an Azure public cloud or on premises, but enabled by Arc.
Meet them where they are. That's a big statement we've made multiple times, but we added this question because we get a lot of that where people are like, well, I don't really get Arc. Like, are you really gonna allow me to do this? Like, I thought you guys were all into migrate and modernize. And thank you for answering that. The other question that usually comes right after that one that leads to the next statement is, people hear that by migrating or by Arc enabling your servers, you're actually going from SPLA revenue to actually driving Azure consumed revenue, which people refer to as ACR. So let me make this statement and you guys tell me if it's right or wrong, true or false. Arc revenue is not Azure consumed revenue.
That is false. Yeah. Arc revenue is Azure consumed revenue. You have an Azure backend subscription that's really enabling the billing capabilities of Arc. It enables really cloud economics inside of a data center where you're paying as your pay as you go. So it does count as Azure consumed revenue, and it helps our partners hit their MAI CPP goals, and as they pursue those related to Azure.
Nothing to add, Fernando? I think that's spot on.
Yep, I'll add to that. It's false. And just like Adam stated, even just when you go to the bare essentials, um, basically when you're looking at licensing, just if you want to just take licensing, for example, that's considered, if you do Arc enabled SQL or Windows, that's ACR. So yeah, definitely that's false. That question is.
Awesome. Very, very clear. That's why I love starting with either true or false. So number 3 relates to security. And the statement is, Arc enabling my servers can improve my security posture.
That's
True.
absolutely true. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And I'll go even further. True, because when you Arc enable your servers, it opens you up now to different Azure services. Like Azure Policy Guest Configuration, Azure Update Manager, Sentinel, Azure Monitor. I mean, there's a number of things that you can get into from a security perspective. Defender for Cloud. I mean, those are all security-enabled features that are in Azure. So definitely, it opens up a realm of new security for the customer and their servers.
Yeah, and I would just say, kind of back to our 30-second pitch, that's why we're so passionate about Arc, is the improved experience we believe we can help provide our partners and customers when you have Arc as the platform in place.
And you see why we have a section later that is, do I have to pay for that? Because you mentioned quite a few things, and we'll get to the pricing if there is one. Let's go to the next question, or statement better said, which is, pay-as-you-go billing used with SQL servers can be hosted on non-Azure clouds.
True. Yeah, we definitely see our partners enabling customers with Arc on AWS, GCP. Absolutely.
Wow. Now, this is a comeback because we had 2 falses and then 2 trues. We're going to get to number 5 here. Arc is only for managing servers.
I would say true, but a caveat to that. Yes, you can enable, Arc is able for physical and virtual servers running Windows or Linux, but also Kubernetes clusters, which technically on the back end, those are servers too. So yes, true.
Okay, that's number 5. We have 3 trues and 2 falses so far, but I have a surprise bonus question for you all before we jump to the next section, which is Copilot is coming to Arc.
Absolutely true. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's an exciting way to get us into the next section, because we'll have more details on that soon. The section that we have next, number 3, is Biz and Tech. So as I said before, Adam, you'll be the business lens, and Fernando, you'll be the technical lens, at least initially, into any of these questions that I have. And again, I have 6, I believe, that I'm looking at. So we'll get to them right away. The first one is very simple. When should I consider Arc?
When should you consider Arc? From a technical perspective, I would say now. Basically, if you're running servers that are not in Azure, they're on-prem or any other public cloud or private cloud, consider it now, because you're going to see there's definitely cost-benefit analysis you can go in it, just like cloud economics. There's some technical benefits you'll see. Just things of like when you start looking at your SQL estate, definitely you put Arc-enabled SQL, you're going to see some cost benefits, compliance benefits, as far as making sure you're licensing correctly, make sure you're licensing the right number of cores. When you're looking at from a security perspective, making sure it could be a one-stop shop for all your needs from a security, server management, license management. Those are the things, and there's also assessments that are built into that can help you when you decide, even though all these workloads are running on-prem, as you continue to run them on-prem and Arc enable them, over time, you'll see there's assessments that can give you recommendations on, hey, if you migrate this, this is what you can do. This is the size server you can stay with. This is what you can run from a SQL perspective. So yeah, I would say the time is now.
Yeah, and from a business standpoint, I would say the time is also now. There's instant cost savings that you get with Arc, and then you also have the ability to offer incremental services to your customers to drive incremental revenue and value to them. So absolutely now.
Awesome. And Fernando, since you're the technical lens here, one thing that I want to leave very clear, because it's a frequently asked question, is there a minimum number of cores for the pay-as-you-go billing when we're talking about Arc?
Yes, 4 cores.
And essentially, the one thing I'll add to that is Arc corresponds to the same minimums that exist with SQL Server. So Arc doesn't do anything different. Arc just enforces the minimums that already exist when it comes to licensing SQL.
Perfect. Thanks for adding the business lens to that.
Yeah, actually, the one benefit I'll say, this is like, we may edit this out. This is kind of geeky, but you can license 5 cores with SQL or 7 because you don't have to buy them in 2 packs like you would with a traditional license SKUs. So if you're running a 5-core VM, you also have instant cost savings.
Adam, you're supposed to be the business person. We're getting all geeky with us.
That's a business.
That's good. That's a
instant
need to
cost
know.
savings.
It's a good one.
Yeah. They're blended. I'm sure I could ask you to switch roles right away and you'll do just fine. But let's just jump because we have 6 and we're only got it to the first one. Number 2 is, what are the major roadblocks or barriers that people face when implementing Arc? You've done this with hundreds of partners already, so you might have a few to summarize here.
I'll say on the business side, this is where business and tech blends, I think, in the partner business. But the number one issue I see is you actually have cloud billing coming from Arc. And then in a lot of cases, this is the first time that our partners have integrated cloud services with data center solutions. And so many of our partners have billing systems for cloud and they have billing systems for their data center. And what we have found is they're not often fully integrated on the back end. And so with Arc, you do need to figure out how do you integrate a cloud billing solution because you're consuming cloud services into your data center to charge your data center customers based on what Microsoft charges through Arc. That is often the main challenge I see partner space. The other is because with Arc and CSP, it's going through the process to get the MCA in place with your customers and kind of the new terms that you may not already have in place when it comes to CSP with those customers. I would say those are the top 2 things that sometimes will slow down a deployment.
And from a technical side, I'll add, to enable Arc enable any of the servers that you're going to manage, you have to deploy an agent. So you have to make sure the proper security parameters are around where that agent can communicate back to Microsoft and to the cloud to be able to enable licensing, to be able to enable any of the Azure services. So making sure you have the right network communication is key because if not, it could stop any services that you could be deploying via Arc or any billing.
And that leads me to the next question, which is about implementation. How is the implementation process of installing the Arc agent?
The agent is pretty easy. You can deploy it various different ways. You can automate it. You can manually deploy it. So it's just an agent. Just like nowadays, if you were to have some sort of security software, you have an agent on that. So that's what Arc uses, an agent that communicates back to Azure, which would be your subscription that you would have in Arc, in Azure. And that agent, once it's deployed, it does the heavy lifting for you, as far as like enabling, like when you want to enable Azure Monitor. Once you get it configured, that agent does all the communication back and forth. So it's vital to make sure that agent is installed and it can be installed on any other workloads that you want to deploy Arc.
Yeah, and I would say from a business standpoint, a lot of times it comes down to timing. If you're transitioning off SPLA, SPLA is a monthly licensing model. So many of our partners will deploy Arc and then essentially turn on the billing on maybe the last day of the month from an Arc standpoint. And then use Arc from a billing standpoint going forward for SQL as an example, and then discontinue SPLA, kind of the full month of when that new month starts, right? So kind of just getting the organization lined up from a timing standpoint and then helping the business transition away from SPLA into Arc for the services you're now consuming through Arc. is just kind of the organizational planning you have to go through.
Awesome. Now, back at Ignite in November, there was this announcement on Azure Local, right? And all those capabilities. How do you compare or complement Azure Local and that technology with Azure Arc, and when to use what?
So I'll say from a business standpoint, Azure Local is really it's an iteration of Azure Stack. So if you're familiar with like Azure Stack HCI, Azure Local is the next implementation of that. And it essentially allows you to have a full suite of Azure services running inside of your data center. One of the key drivers we see for our partners is Azure Virtual Desktop. Being able to bring that capability inside the data center is a huge value add. But that's really where you're leveraging kind of the full infrastructure of Azure Local. There are some server and storage requirements you have to factor in. You may be able to use your existing hardware. You may need to purchase purpose-built hardware. And we have a number of partners in a broad ecosystem to get that from. And so we're seeing a lot of partners that may be looking at VMware. They see their VMware costs rising. They have some commitments to the data center, and so they're trying to figure out where to go. And Azure Local can definitely, I think, help meet those needs in many cases.
Yeah. And then from the technical side, just like, Adam hit on some of that stuff too earlier, is for those customers who are making that decision, whether I stay with the Broadcom VMware deployment or Azure Local is a new option for them. And even they can still go kind of a hybrid, introduce some of the Azure Local Arc enabled still on some of the other old estates that they have. So there's a mixture. But at the end of the day, it gives those partners or customers who still have that real estate of a data center the ability to deploy Azure services there on-prem and locally.
Perfect. Now for the next question, it's actually a would you rather question. So let's see if you all agree with one another here. The question is, if you're about to Arc enable your servers, would you rather start with Arc enabling your SQL server or your Windows server?
I'm gonna go business and I'm gonna go technical, but with a business reasoning behind it. I would say if you have SQL, I would start with SQL first. In any deployment, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, SQL tends to, when you compare a Windows server to a SQL server, SQL is automatically going to be expensive because you have the licensing for Windows and the licensing for SQL. So if you do Arc enable SQL, you can really take advantage of best of both worlds, especially if you're running a newer version of SQL and a newer version of Windows like Windows 2025, where you can actually turn them both on the same server. So I would start there just from a cost savings perspective, but then also don't leave behind your Windows servers either, enabling those.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, I would 100% agree. I think what we often find is when businesses look at the cost savings in ROI of enabling their SQL servers, that drives the broader Arc deployment across the organization. So SQL is often kind of the catalyst to get it started, but then we see them deploy it, broadly across the entire organization for a multitude of reasons.
And Fernando, you touched upon this briefly. It leads to my next question. What are the downgrade capabilities of Arc enabling Windows and SQL Server PayGo?
The downgrade ability, so you can go as far as on the pay-as-you-go model, SQL 2014. You can go down as low as that. So from 2014 up. And then from the Windows perspective, it's only available for now because it was just announced, Windows 2025.
Yeah, and I would say from a management standpoint, we support Windows. But yeah, in terms of pay-as-you-go capability, it's only Windows Server 2025. That PayGo capability too, the model has changed where you no longer have core minimums with Arc. So if you're deploying it for smaller VMs, the PayGo capability may be the most cost-effective option. If you have VMs that have substantial cores, you may want to look at a combination where you're actually licensing it with perhaps Windows CSP subscriptions or Windows Server subscriptions purchased through CSP. That comes with the software assurance benefit to actually make it Arc capable for the Windows server, and you kind of get the best of both worlds there in that case. From kind of the most cost effective option, but then the Arc management capabilities as well when it comes to Windows.
Perfect. And I originally only had 5 questions, but then a friend from a product marketing team added a 6th one. And I think it also speaks to the newest capabilities of Azure. So here's a question that Nate Waters, shout out to Nate Waters, added here. How do I ensure it's easy to do this deployment in my current networking configuration?
I would say a new feature, a new capability that just came out a couple months ago is the Azure Arc Gateway. It simplifies your network connectivity. It enables you to not have to put different URLs and different port configurations and always whitelisting those in your firewalls or if you're running any proxies. So that has been something that's helping deployments get rolled out faster now, is because when you use the Arc enabled gateway, it makes life so much easier from a networking and firewall perspective. You enable the gateway, it overlaps over the entire Arc deployment, and simply if there's any URL changes, it gets pushed to the gateway versus having to send it to your network engineers and team and have them go into the firewall and whitelist those. So that deployment cycle has sped up now a lot when you're doing, especially on a large deployment of Arc.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would add to that too is private link and then the Azure firewall go hand in hand with that. That can increase your costs in full transparency. But sometimes we see partners that say, hey, I want to completely minimize anything traversing the internet. And I want to basically have more of a private kind of connection into Azure, and private link and then the firewall capabilities can help with that as well.
Well, what a way to segue us into the next section, our last section. But I think the major takeaway here, other than the amazing knowledge that you both have shared, is how blended the business and the technical sides are. Like, obviously, you guys use both lenses when you're talking one-on-one with partners all the time. So I appreciate you staying as much as you could within your lanes, but also showing, how it's really hard to keep those separate. And now we head to the final section, which is the "Do I have to pay for" section. And I'm going to ask only one of you each, because the answer will be pretty explicit and straightforward. But if there's anything else you want to add, feel free to interrupt me, please. So I'll start with you, Adam, because you seem to have the business lens today. Do I have to pay for Arc enabling my Windows or SQL servers?
So I think it depends on kind of how far you go. And essentially the control plane and that functionality are free. There are likely going to be some costs, though, especially if you look to Arc enable SQL and move to SQL in a pay-go fashion. You often may look to adopt other kind of add-on capabilities with Arc, which have a cost. But with Arc, it's essentially a la carte, pay as you go. So you can really kind of pick and choose where you see the value to take advantage of. And then, from a spending standpoint, if you're purchasing that through CSP, you get kind of the full benefits of buying in CSP in terms of the associated, partner earned credit, the rebates that exist, all of those things that can help reduce your total cost when you look at kind of what you're paying for there.
Perfect. I'll go to you, Fernando, next. Do I have to pay for, once I Arc enabled, basic management and inventory?
No, you don't. That is free of charge. That is one of the first things once you enable Arc, you want to do. You want to enable the basic management. You want to the inventory, the tagging, using the Azure Resource Graph. All those features are free.
Now I'll go back to you, Adam. Fernando mentioned earlier all the security benefits of Arc enabling your servers. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, do I have to pay for it?
You do. There are a couple options in how you purchase it, but there is a cost with Defender for Cloud.
Great. Back to you, Fernando. Do I have to pay for running a best practices assessment once I've Arc enabled my servers?
No, that's completely free. It's basically there for you to use, and you can, once you enable Arc, you can continuously access the best practice assessment, and it's always going to be free.
And in this world of AI, the major importance of using tools like Microsoft Purview for data governance. Do I have to pay for Microsoft Purview, Adam?
Purview is an add-on cost. Yep.
Fernando, back to you. Do I get charged if my virtual machine running SQL Server is stopped?
No, you do not. Once the VM is stopped, the usage data is no longer collected. So therefore, you will not be charged.
Adam, does pay-as-you-go billing stop charging when connectivity between the SQL Server resource and Azure are temporarily interrupted?
No. The agent's still able to capture that billing. The agent's not talking to Azure on like a 24/7, 365 basis. It's essentially collecting the usage, tracking that SQL service is running, and then it reports back to Azure occasionally to kind of funnel that billing data back up. So I believe you can have up to 30 days of disconnected use before you run into any issues.
And last question of the day for you, Fernando. Do I get charged if my SQL Server instance was running for less than 1 hour?
Yes, you do. The billing is granular and it's on a per hour basis. So let's say if your server was running for 45 minutes, which is a little bit less than an hour, you'll be billed for the full hour. So basically, that's one of the great things about Arc-enabled SQL. It goes now to the billing structure is on an hourly basis. So if I have my server up for 2 hours in that month time frame or whatever, I get charged 2 hours. So that's one of the great advantages that people have by using Arc-enabled.
And with that, congratulations, Fernando and Adam. You made it through 4 sections of lots of Arc questions. How do you feel after that?
Yeah, it was great. It was good to cover, I think, a lot of the frequently asked questions. So it was good.
No, it's great. I mean, Arc is getting a lot of movement, especially over this last year. Coming out of Ignite, a lot of new features that have been added to Arc. So I would say in my 3 years of being here at Microsoft, I saw Arc grow from this product that was just more like a bridge, kind of a hybrid cloud bridge, to where it's at now. It's been amazing.
Awesome. Is there any point that we didn't touch upon that you usually get asked that you want to cover, or do you think we did a decent job of being exhaustive here?
You nailed it, Fede. Way to go. We got it. I think we got it.
That was my goal. And of course, we know more questions could arise. We have a LinkedIn community, the Hybrid Cloud Partners LinkedIn community, a group that you can join and ask us more questions. Fernando goes there twice a day to check your questions, I think, as an avid podcasting community member. But also, we will add some of the resources, as always, in the notes of this show. For instance, there's a really nice slide that shows a bunch of the features that we mentioned with their pricing. I know pricing could change, so we wanted to show it there if you have those questions. And as always, stay tuned for more episodes. We have more partner stories coming up, but we were glad to also give you a glimpse of what Adam, Fernando, and the rest of the DCO team get on a daily basis with those partner questions. If you want to have that conversation because maybe we didn't cover your question and you don't want to post on the LinkedIn community, well, you can always reach out to us at dco.microsoft.com. With that, Fernando and Adam, thank you so much for joining us on this Friday and having some fun with me.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Fede. Thanks so much. Take care, guys.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for more insights and stories from Microsoft's data center optimization team. Be sure to stay connected at dco.microsoft.com or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.